So hello everyone and welcome to this session of the Thriving Families Africa Summit. And our conversation today really touches on one of the most tender parts of life. How do we help children? How do we help families navigate grief, loss, and emotions that even adults often struggle to express? And our guest, Mueni Wambua, a colleague, a friend, she's a grief coach, and her work helps families understand and process loss with compassion and honesty in a way that is, and I know you're also an authenticity coach. So there's a lot of authenticity that comes into that space. What I know about Mueni is she speaks with so much passion when it comes to grief, and she grief and loss, and she unpacks it in ways that we can really, really relate to. And I'm so glad that you are able to join us today, Mueni. Karibu sana.
Asante sana. It really is an honor to be here and to have this very relevant conversation, because sometimes it's one of those conversations that we are afraid of.
Yeah, we are afraid of. And there are many reasons, cultural, religious, how we've been brought up and all that. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how we'll unpack this, because when we even just think about loss and grief, those words mean differently to different people. And for you personally and in your work, what does that mean?
When within the context of family, when you talk about grief and loss, the first thing that comes to mind is that by its very nature, family has very deep connection. And with deep connection comes shared experiences and history. So when we're talking about grief and loss and family, we must go back to even just unpack, first of all, what is the definition of loss and grief? Grief is, in its purest definition, is the complex emotions that arise out of a change of pattern as we have known it. Now, given that how wide that definition is, I'm hoping that we will, as we have this conversation, we will move our minds from only looking at grief as who died. Because unless we move our minds from that, there are many other grief things, the many other grief processes that we go through in life that we actually don't realize that they are grief. They cause grief in the hearts of families. They cause grief in the hearts of children. And because we don't recognize those as grief and we don't recognize those as losses, we therefore don't tend to them. And so many things we see manifesting in the life of adults are griefs that were unprocessed when they were children, either unattended to, unacknowledged, or even unsupported.
Right. So what are some of the examples?
The range is very wide. When I was being certified years back, there were 42, at least 42 things that cause grief to the human heart.
Okay.
And that was before COVID. I am sure post-COVID, those have become a lot more than the 42 that we studied. And so some of the ones that come to the top of mind is transferring children from one school to another. We as parents never think about it. We think, it's for your own good. You don't have an opinion on this. We've moved, and sometimes it's a logical decision. We move from one neighborhood to another. We move from one city to another. So transferring is not an option. But then, do we help the children? Do we support the children through the transferring process, through the navigation of that process? Because grief by design brings along transition. They're like two sides of the coin. And that essentially life gives us generally three types of transitions. One, transitions that happen as a result of passage of time. You have a child, they get to 12, they are going to puberty, they're in their 20s, they are now young adults, they're 18, so there's always passage of time. The children are changing, so their capacity is changing, everything is changing. So as a result, you may hear your children tell you, you are so much nicer when I was a child, but maybe that's because you didn't argue with me when I was when you were a child. So that transition as a result of the passage of time can cause grief in families when they're not acknowledging passage of time and the effect that has had on both sides, both the parents and the parented. Another transition that happens, another thing that brings about transition is choice. The choices we make, moving from one city to another, moving from one country to another, moving from one school to another, moving from one job to another. end in a relationship. So it's easy to think that because I chose to do this, then it will flow smoothly. There will be no grief around it.
Yeah.
And in fact, the other thing about choice is that we also tend to think that because I chose to do it, I am going to happily make the transition.
Yeah.
That's not always so.
Yeah.
I can choose to take up a new job and really realize that it's really, really hard. I can choose to relocate and get so homesick. So choice brings about transition, and transitions by their very nature bring about grief because it's a change of pattern as you have known it. And then the third one, which is the one that we sort of acknowledge a bit more, is what I call it act of God because I'm a pastor. Some people call it different things. Some people call it stroke of luck. Some people call it act of fate. Others call it the universe, fate, whatever we call it. But what it essentially means is that there I was with the busyness of my life, and then something that I was not expecting comes my way and throws me off the track that I was on. And so life causes transitions, eventualities of life cause transition. And here is another thing to notice about grief, Caroline, Dr. Caro, is that most people think that grief is only something that arises out of things we perceive to be bad.
Okay.
We can grieve over things that we perceived them as being good, but then they cause grief because grief is the emotions that arise out of a change of pattern as we have known it. So I was looking forward to having a baby. I'm excited about the baby, and the baby comes, but oh my goodness, it also comes with sleepless nights. It also comes with tons of laundry loads. So that transition, I was looking forward to becoming a wife. I didn't think that you would be here all the time. So things that we perceive to be good, the minute we begin to have a comparison with what was before, the emotions in between there are grief. Yeah, so when we think of it like that, then you begin to realize that there's plenty of grief around us. It's in different ways and shape.
No wonder the 42 types, eh?
Oh my goodness. In fact, for me, the one that shocked me the most was one that we actually do a lot of in Africa.
Yeah.
Many of us grew up in families where you have a firstborn who is so much older, and then a lastborn who, by all intents and purposes, can be a child of this firstborn.
Yeah.
In fact, some of us have firstborns whose children are older than the lastborn.
Yep.
And so one of the things about being siblings is shared family experiences. Now, these two children, the firstborn and the lastborn, will not have shared family experiences because the timelines are so far apart when they were being raised in the family. And so you find this lastborn is more sometimes a child of the firstborn than they were raised by their mother and father. And so I don't deal with this firstborn as my sibling. I deal with them as mom. I deal with them as my father. They educated me. So even when they call me, I don't have a choice on saying, yes, I'm available. It is a summons.
Right. Yeah.
So that was a big one for me when I was studying, because I was like, that's so common in Africa. We have these big age gaps between children, and that causes grief in the hearts of children because sometimes it makes them feel so removed from one another.
Yeah.
Another one, and this is a common one, and I'm glad to see that in our society today, it's a largely acknowledged grief, death of a pet.
Yes.
Yeah, so at least I'm very happy to report that a lot of people are acknowledging that pets are part of our families. So death of a pet is really being supported today in many ways as I see it. Another one is in the economy that we are in, the shutting down of a business. The loss of jobs of families, the change in identities. I'm trained as an engineer, but now I'm a farmer.
Yeah.
Or whatever, so maybe an engineer and a farmer may not be too off, but maybe I'm trained as a mathematician, and now I'm a farmer. I've been a lecturer at the university all along, teaching maths, teaching chemistry, but now here I am farming or running a kiosk. In this country, we have a lot of people who say they are graduates and they are hawking, and because there is no employment. So that is grief, because they look at it like the time I wasted in school, the resources I wasted in school. Families have sold land to send their children to school in the belief that they will come and support the family. So now this child to go and be a hawker is a grief for the whole family. You know, we have another one that we don't talk about is the grief of the things that don't happen. So I grew up as a young girl believing at the age of 25 at the oldest, I will be married.
At a timeline, eh?
Yes, I had a timeline. And here I am, 40 years old, 25, came and went, and there was no marriage in sight. And now, not only is marriage moving further and further out of my sight, but now even the possibility of having children if I get married. So the grief of deferred dreams or dreams that will never come to be, that's also something that we grieve over. And we don't talk about that grief. And we need spaces to talk about these losses.
Yeah.
And so there's very many things to grieve around and about. So 42.
42, my goodness, I did not know that. Very curious to see those 42. I'll do a little bit of research after this.
Loss of health.
Loss of health.
So I was an energetic person. I used to play sports, and here I am. I've been diagnosed with a disease that no longer allows me to do all that. Think about the grief in families when parents are aging. This mom that used to beat us and terrorize us all now needs support to go to the washroom.
That's a tough one.
So the grief of watching our parents age.
Yeah.
Sometimes as parents, we grieve when we see our children growing, and you're like, now they're no longer under my control. Now or not even just control, but even empty nesters.
Right.
Empty nesting can cause grief in that, because now I'm no longer relevant. I mean, I don't have to come home and cook and complain how I'm buying 3 loaves of bread for my teenage sons, you know? Now we're also seeing a lot of grief arising from perimenopause, menopause seasons. Because remember that unconsciously, menopause and perimenopause make us think that you've lost youth.
Yeah.
And so we grieve over that. Now I'm an adult, now I'm an old person. In fact, there are certain cultures when women stopped having their regular cycles, they would be told, now you've grown up, now you can sit in the seat of, now you become a man. Now you become an elder. They will honor you and appreciate and respect the fact that you're older and therefore experienced and that you have brought life. But now you're mature enough to sit and have the presence of mind to make decisions for the larger community. So and it's complex. And that's not to say it's not to say that it was demeaning to women. On the contrary, the thinking behind that is actually to honor them. But as women today, where we don't have that happening in our society, because I'm no longer able to have children, that may make me feel like my usefulness is diminished, and this even I mean, in certain conversations, we even have people saying that for most women, when we are past childbearing age, there is not much interventions for the health of women in their reproductive health, because reproductive health is once you're in the childbearing years, once you're out of that space, then what? You fall into nothingness and no support. So there are many things to look around and see the things that we grieve over in our families.
Yeah, that has a lot to do with what you're just describing. Also has a lot to do with loss of identity.
Loss of identity.
As you knew it yourself to be, right?
Think about our political politicians when they go into politics and you're vying for a seat. And you know, some of those seats are so contested. You find one seat may have up to 20 candidates, and only one person can be a representative there. And then when so what happens to the other 19? They are grieving. And you know, it's very easy for us to not extend compassion or empathy to politicians when they lose an election, because unfortunately, some of them, their behavior during or before can be very off. But they are grieving, and some of them, if you've been an MP for so long, now you're not an MP, some of them even go to church and they don't know where to sit anymore.
Yeah.
Because the seat that was there for them as MP has been taken by somebody else. Somebody else is being led to that seat. So they come in and now there's no longer that pomp and honor, wondering where to place Mheshimiwa. And now you're that statement that we use of ordinary citizen. And they don't know how to be that anymore. So they feel very lost. Is it a wonder that our elections are such a life and death matter?
Right.
Because it's about status, it's about identity, it's about everything.
Prestige and position that you get. Yeah. And we are really just talking and realizing, I mean, as you're talking, I'm realizing we don't even understand grief ourselves. We don't understand even those emotions that come out that we experience, and how much more when children are in our spaces, we're just going through our emotions and trying to make the decisions. But I'm just thinking about those under our care, those that we are taking care of, we are stewarding, or, there is so much that we miss out. And I want us to narrow down a little bit on just grieving when it comes to children. I feel like we need 2 sessions when we just talk about for the adults and for the kids. But as we are looking at helping children then navigate those hard emotions, do you have any stories that you think you could share that just deepened your understanding of how grief shows up in children?
The first truth that we must acknowledge, Dr. Chakoya, is that grief is always a family issue.
Okay.
Why do I say that? It's because now, in 2 ways, there may be a loss within the family that affects everyone in the family. Yeah, so we all relocated. So everyone in the family is navigating that. But then we have other losses that affect one member of the family directly, and then now indirectly the rest. For instance, mom works for an organization and she loses a colleague. So my children may not necessarily know this colleague, but mom is heartbroken.
Yeah.
Or now mom may need to work longer hours, or now mom may need, there's something that has been shaken in the life of mom, and therefore is going to cause a ripple in the life of the family. So grief is always a family issue. In fact, many years ago, there was a disease. We used to say, even if you're not infected, you're affected. And that's how it is with grief. Even if it doesn't directly affect you in the context of family, it affects you. It affects everyone else. Yeah. One of the things that happen when it comes to families and grief, I am always surprised by how much we underestimate children.
Right.
Children are so observant. And in this day and age, children are very informed. And so we underestimate how much they see, how much they know, and how much they're interpreting what they're seeing. We also underestimate their capacity to support through grief. Let me give you a simple a real example that I live with them. Because I serve as a pastor. Many times I will go for funerals, and sometimes truth is I will go for funerals of people I don't know. So it may be a congregant who has lost a parent. Now, I don't know the parent, but I know the congregant. And so I may find I'm traveling for the funeral. And so I'll come home. I'm tired. I probably traveled a long distance. I'm tired. I have a program. And so my children, from a very young age, would make me sit down and say, mom, tell us about, we go through the program with them. And they'd be like, tell us about this person. Did you know them? Yes. Did you know them? No. So if I knew them, I tell them how I knew the person. If I didn't know them, then I tell them why I went for that funeral, because you didn't know the person. What was the relationship? And then sometimes we would go over the songs, and then sometimes my daughter, very young, would give me a massage, not very effective as far as massages go, but it made her feel useful, and it just made me feel loved.
Yeah.
And it made me feel comforted. So children have capacity, and sometimes they look at you and they're like, Mom, you're sad.
Yeah.
And so they can see it. And so many times in families, now we are seeing that changing. But previously, people used to come, even in the context of friends coming to support the family. They would support the mom, they would support the dad, but they don't acknowledge the children and the grief. In fact, they take the children to the other room so that we the adults can deal with the issue. And today, because my clients include adults, my clients include adults, So we see adults who are struggling today because of how the grief that they went through as a child was not processed. So you have a 40-year-old who's telling you that what they remember about their dad is nobody told them their dad had died. They figured out because when the dad died, they went to stay with an auntie during the preparation for the funeral season. And then one day you show up and you're put in a suit. You're put in a suit and you're given a cross or a photograph to carry, and your dad is in the box. Nobody has explained to you. Nobody is talking to you about anything. And now stand next to the coffin and we take a picture. Okay, and so the effects of that are now showing up in the lives of the adults. And so, given that, one of the things we need to do is children need to be talked to in age-appropriate language. But please include children in the conversations about grief in the family, because they affect them. And guess what? They also have an opinion. Hear them out. Allow them to be part of the journey. Because if you think of grief as a journey, and therefore the destination is recovery, you want to make sure that the people you left with at the start of the journey, you make it to the other end with them. And so you don't want to leave the children behind.
Right. And the example you've given of just, being taken to your uncle, showing up with a cross and a suit, nobody's telling you, then your dad is in a box. And you say we don't know what the long-term effects are. What are some of those long-term effects as an adult?
One, let me use because the example I gave you is a man in his 40s, a client. And so he was a teenager when that happened. And so, and the firstborn son. So it was his dad. And so guess what? Everybody also started telling him, now you're the man of the home. Now you need to protect. And then he has sisters and then his mom. So you need to protect the women. So guess what? He was very quickly a parentified child. Out of, he had to now start dealing with adult emotions, even when he doesn't have the resources to help him navigate that. So parentification happens immediately. So he never really was a teenager. When people in campus were having fun, he was visiting his sisters in school and going up country every weekend to check on his mom. So he never was a child. So he had to grow up too fast. So missed certain stages in growing up, missed certain liberties that you have when growing up. And so it sometimes can make you very anxious because you live with the reality of death of a parent brings the issue of the reality of death to the fore, not just the death of the people around you, but even your own death. Mortality comes to the fore. And so he's lived his life with a lot of fear of death, his own and everything. So almost like a pressure to not live in the present, but constantly thinking, when I die, So that's another effect that we see. Avoidance. Avoidance, because for the longest time, he was like, I'm not getting married because I'd never want to die and leave my wife in the situation that my father left my mom. So avoidance. When people die, they cause pain. So I don't want to cause pain. Withdrawal from society, because you always feel like I don't want to be identified as that child that lost my father. So I don't participate in things. It feels like it's a stain on your identity. Not knowing yourself. Identity is also another thing that gets very shattered and fragmented when we go through loss as children. So all those things have an effect of showing up in adulthood.
And definitely affect your relationships.
Of course, affect your relationships, relationships with the people around you, and relationships with the world around you, and of course your relationship with the divine.
So thinking about that, then do you see like children grieve differently from adults, and or is it the same?
I think it's the same. It just manifests differently. It's and the degree and the extent to which children grieve may seem higher, partly because children don't even have vocabulary to express their grief. But also remember that children, by virtue of how long they have lived, don't have the benefit or even the baggage of experience. So sometimes you may find, because they don't have the baggage of experience, they may not have the full grasp of the extent to which their life has completely been changed by this loss. But sometimes that's not necessarily a bad thing, because it means that then they can rise up from it. And what I do know from experience is that if we normalize support, if we normalize, first of all, conversations around grief and loss, then we will normalize support. And so children will not grow up thinking and believing that change of a life pattern as you have known it is unique to them. They will grow up with an awareness that change is a constant. And therefore it will actually help build resilience. But it will also help build empathy. I see a lot of empathy with children when they know that people have gone through loss. They will ask, should we give them this? Can we give them that? And so allowing children to experience and talk about loss can help us nurture them to resilience and empathy, because sometimes you can be able to relate. Remember when you lost this, and then so and so did for you this, how that felt. So these conversations help make healthier societies, because healthy societies are not societies that loss does not happen. They're societies that navigate loss in healthy ways, and healthy ways of navigating loss are essentially ways that support and enhance the well-being of the society tomorrow beyond the loss.
So what are some of these small ways that families that in your work have helped families navigate or talk through loss with children? And I guess with adults as well, right?
One of the challenges, especially for faith communities, is we sugarcoat death.
We do.
We sugarcoat loss.
Yeah.
So we will confuse children when we say things like, they have rested. Oh, so they're going to wake up.
They're going to sleep. They have slept.
They have slept. Oh, so they're going to wake up. Or they've gone to be with the Lord. What does that mean? Were they not with the Lord when they were on earth? So we talk about Emmanuel, God with us. When we say things like
God loved them so much.
We loved them, but God loved them more. It makes children think, I don't even want to be loved by this God, because if being loved by God is dying, then I don't want to be loved by God. Or it makes them think, so we didn't die because we are bad.
Exactly. Because they're black and white thinking, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's not sugarcoat. Let's not try. And I get where the sugarcoating comes from, because it comes from wanting to protect them. But you cannot sugarcoat death. And so in fact, sometimes when we try to sugarcoat it too much, then we cause harm. So explain them in language that's age appropriate. And then give them the space to have the full expression of the emotions that will arise. Whatever those emotions may look like, be present. Yeah. Another thing that families need to do when children go through loss is include them in conversations, whether it is the funeral arrangements, whether it is in the relocation to a new school, whether it is in the relocation to a new county, whether it is in the choosing of a new house in the new neighborhood. Include them in that journey, so that you're not making decisions for them, but you're making decisions with them. Another thing that we also need to be able to do as parents is allow ourselves to be vulnerable. What happens when parents are vulnerable in the space of loss is that it normalizes the emotions that arise. So when a parent is vulnerable and says, you know what, I miss grandma, our vulnerability as parents invites the children to step into their own vulnerability. So when I say I miss grandma, it will allow the children to say, oh yeah, me too, because now we almost give them permission to feel. And children, regardless of their ages, are almost always looking up to their parents to guide them in this new and strange space.
Yeah.
So if the parents don't want to be vulnerable and do not want to show emotion, then the children will feel shamed for showing emotion, weak for showing emotion. But when the parent shows emotion, then the child takes the cue and realizes that because they're feeling the emotion, it does not make them strange. It makes them like mommy, it makes them like daddy. Another thing we need to do through grief, and especially when we're talking about death of a person, is that grief does not end with a funeral.
Yeah.
Grief does not end with a funeral. Grief is the reality of grief is that grief does not have a timeline.
Right.
So we are not going to wake up and one day say we have forgotten so and so who died. We are going to live with the reality of the fact that so and so died. So how do we integrate this loss into everyday life? We talk about it. We talk about the reminders. We talk about the things that this loss meant. We talk about the things that this person stood for. We embody the things that this person stood for. We remember the days, for instance, their birthday, their anniversary. We remember that we live out the things that honor the memory of the person. And that helps us to integrate the loss into our everyday life. So we're not leaving them behind.
Yeah.
So if your dad died when you were age 10, and now you're getting married at age 24, it is okay for us to have in the program a minute or a ceremony where we lay flowers at the graveside, or have a flower and say, this is for daddy. And so it's to recover from grief is not to forget.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is to remember with love and compassion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not minimize it or try and suppress it.
Exactly. So carry it with you.
Yeah.
In the different ways and in healthy ways.
Healthy ways.
Because it's another thing to build a shrine and decide we are never going to go to this room. That's also not healthy. Remember, we say that healthy ways to grieve are ways that enhance your well-being for tomorrow. Yeah.
So what are some other unhealthy ways?
Unhealthy ways is one, silencing the conversation. Avoidant culture is also a way of that is very unhealthy. So we never talk about the loss, we never talk about the person, we never talk about the emotions. Another unhealthy way is behaving as though the person is still existing.
Okay.
So don't sit on that chair belongs to dad. So balance and virtue lies in the middle.
Okay.
So the first time I will sit on dad's chair may feel very strange.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the second time may feel very strange. And here is the unpredictable nature of grief. Sometimes the very same things that made you cry may be the very same things that will bring you comfort. So day one, I may say, please remove all the pictures of dad. But day two, I may say, please return all the pictures of dad. Because here is a thing about that families need to know. We are figuring it out as we go along. Yeah. There is no manual, there is no script.
Yeah.
So just figure it out. And how to figure it out? With truth, authentically. How does this make me feel? I don't know. So it's okay. Let it stay until we decide what you feel about it. Maybe you had never thought about the fact that this chair was dad's. You've never thought about it, but now that you brought it to my awareness, okay, let me think about it and I'll come back to you what I think. And then I'll come back and say, I want it in my bedroom. I don't want other people to see it on it. Because I want it in my bedroom. I want it to be just mine. Or I want other people to sit on it because that's what dad would have wanted. So just, yeah. So, yeah. So just being able to allow ourselves the freedom to not have figured it all out is a key thing for families going through grief. And then another thing that families also need to do is to take away the need to replace. Now so-and-so is our new daddy. Now uncle so-and-so is our new daddy. No. Or now that your brother is gone, you're now the big brother.
Mm.
No, you cannot replace the person.
Mm.
You can redelegate the roles,
Yeah.
but you cannot replace the person.
Yeah.
And those things that we say, now you're the new mother, now you're the head of the home, they create pressure, and they also curtail healthy grieving.
Yeah. And I see, like, most of the time we just associate grief with sadness only. So what are other ways that parents can actually recognize that a child is grieving when there is no sadness? And, draw examples from death, loss of a pet, the one that is happening a lot now. And I know we are in that space. We are seeing a lot of separation and divorce, and it's showing up sometimes not as sadness. What other ways can parents recognize grieving?
Sometimes children take on extreme caretaking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Let me give you a personal story. When COVID came,
Mhm.
there was a time when my husband, myself, and my son, we all had COVID.
Okay.
And so someone told my son was, I think, 16 then. No, he was about 14.
Mhm.
So someone told my son, because my husband was admitted in hospital, and someone told my son, now you need to take care of mom. Remember that both my son and I have COVID.
Mm.
And so in the middle of the night, my son comes to take my temperature and check my oxygen levels. At the first time he did it, remember, I also have COVID, it didn't register.
Yeah.
But when he came to do it again, like 4 a.m., I asked him, how did you even come? Are you not sleeping? He said, no, I set my alarm so that I can come and check on you. And so I woke up and I sat him down and I asked him, where is this coming from? And told me, oh, Uncle so-and-so told me, but now because dad is in hospital, I'm the man of the house and I should take care of the girls. So I sat him down. This is a 14-year-old boy. So I had to sit down and tell him, no, a time will come when you will need to take care of me. But until then, imagine I am still mom and we are going to navigate this together. And so, no, please don't set the alarm to wake up and check on me. Please allow yourself to go and sleep. So at like 5 a.m., I made us breakfast. And then the boy went back to bed and he really slept because he had not slept the whole night because he had been anxious. So extreme caregiving, when you see a child now stepping up to things that they were not doing, that's a red flag. Now, many times as parents, we actually are proud. We're like, they've grown up.
Exactly. They've
Yeah,
really
but it's a
stepped
red
up.
flag.
Yeah.
They've stepped up. So that's a red flag. Another one is sometimes children become very naughty in school. And they become very, very naughty to the extent of they become a nuisance. But what they want is they want to be reminded that they're still loved.
Yeah.
They want to experience love. They want to feel love. So they feel like the only way they can catch your attention is by being naughty.
Yeah.
And then sometimes children become the exact opposite. They become extremely compliant.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to cause any more pain. So again, remember that ideally, parents are the best placed people to know their children. So parents should be able to notice change of behavior and not look at change of behavior in the vacuum of it's a good thing. So some children may do very poorly in school. Their grades may start to drop. For some children, the grades may go up. So any change of behavior it should be noted. Any pattern, we should be observant enough to notice the struggles of our children, or even and the struggles of our children could be becoming better. Yeah, it's still a struggle and it's still a grief manifestation. Another thing that we may notice with children is, of course, withdrawing. Yeah. And not doing the things they wanted to do, and you see, that may not necessarily be marked by sadness. They may withdraw and say, I have a lot of homework, but if you really focus on it, you'll find out they no longer want to go for football. So withdrawal, change of pattern is always a very loud indicator. Sometimes children become very clingy. They're not sad, but they just they want to be with you all the time. Sometimes children become very protective. Again, it's not sadness, but it's again change of behavior. And sometimes they become very pensive. They are not sad, but they're pensive. Everything now has meaning. Yeah. And another one, by the way, and this one is very easy to miss, is that children become very happy and perky and they joke about everything, and that makes us miss it a lot. Because it makes us think they're navigating well.
They're good.
But what we don't realize is that they're trying to make things lighter.
Yeah, because it's heavy.
So because they become very cheeky. So that may easily make us miss it. So we have you get a lot of reports in school of cheekiness. Not necessarily, not enough for them to be chased away from school.
Yeah.
Not enough for them to be in trouble, but they're just cheeky. Yeah. Attention-seeking behavior.
Yeah. So where do we, and I don't like that question, but I'm going to ask you, where do we draw the line? Because there is the normal reaction to grief, to loss. And sometimes, even me, when I work with parents, especially now in the space of separation and divorce, I usually tell them, look out for these signs, not necessarily because we want to fix them, but it's a natural response to what is going on. And your stability is the one that's going to cause them to navigate this place very well. So where do we draw the line and say, now, this one needs help? We've looked out for the signs, but this one actually needs help.
That's a tricky one because it's not always so cut and dry.
Yeah.
But sometimes what I know now, my personal position about taking children for therapy, especially when you've gone through grief, particularly children age 12 and below, because even when they come in for therapy as a family, they may not grasp the vocabulary.
Yeah.
But the other reason why I'm a bit hesitant with taking children for grief at that point is that it makes grief look like it removes the normalcy of grief. So I usually tell the parents, let me support the parent and let the parent support the child.
Yeah.
Because as a therapist, I'm not a regular in the life of the child. So the child may not necessarily feel comfortable opening up to this adult this stranger who is probing. They may not necessarily open up to me. But they can, even if they're not opening up to the parent can, because I am supporting the parent is now using the psychoeducation that I am giving them to see and observe what is going on with the children. And because the parent is the best placed person to support the child, they will be able to pick up and be able to support. So a lot of times the parent becomes the intermediary of the grief support to the child.
Yeah.
And that does two things. One, it helps lift the parent from their own grief and from sinking into their own grief. It builds resilience on the part of the parent and builds hope.
Yeah.
But also for the child, it can easily be a place where parent and child bond.
Yeah.
Because now truth can be spoken, barriers are broken, and now I'm seeing for the first time, I'm seeing that my mother is a human being. She has emotions. I'm seeing my father is a human being. He's crying. So that can be a place to break those barriers and enrich the relationship between parent and child. It doesn't harm to bring in a professional, a therapist, to help guide the conversation.
Okay.
But remember, the therapist can only guide the conversation. They cannot own the conversation. So while the conversation may start or may be provoked in the therapy room, the real work happens outside the therapy room. So it's okay to seek therapeutic help, but remember, the therapist is not a constant in your life,
right,
but the parent is.
Yeah.
So it helps when the parent gets informed.
Yeah.
And then also creates communities so that if the children are in school, let the school know, so that you're working in partnership with the school, because children are in school 6 hours, 8 hours a day. So let also the school community know, and let the school community also observe change of behavior. Because sometimes when the children are home, they're acting out appropriate behavior, but the real behavior is manifesting in school. So work with the school and let the school also be part of the support system.
And now speaking to that, then how can schools, how can communities, just as a society, how can we be part of that support system? What are some of the specific things we can do?
One of the things that I really appreciate about our society is that when a loss happens, we are present, we show up, and we support in many different ways. However, in many different ways, we also show up and support, even in ways when we need to check whether our support is what is needed.
Okay.
So we need to, sometimes we want to send a delegation to the funeral, but the child is thinking, I don't want to go back to school and be that child. Everyone is looking at me as that's the funeral we went to. So it's good to check. It's good to include the children in the decision and just find out, we want to send your schoolmates to stand with you. Is that okay?
Yeah.
But then the bigger work is actually post the funeral.
Yeah.
Because we do a lot of things just after the death and up till the time of the funeral. And then now, because now you've come back to school and the funeral is over, get back into the system. And that's when the real grief support is needed. Because that's when you will see the drop in grades. That's when you'll see the withdrawal from activity. That's when you'll see the truant behavior. That's when you'll see the cheekiness arising. So that's when we'll begin to see the manifestation of the different things that were not present before. It is also important for schools to understand that grief is not just about crying. Grief does not just manifest in crying. There are at least 6 ways, 6 spheres actually, in which grief manifests. And it manifests in different ways, but in those spheres. Grief affects the way we think. Grief affects the way we feel. Grief affects the way we behave. Grief affects the way we are physically, our physical health. Our physical well-being is affected by grief. Grief affects our relationship with the divine. So I no longer want to go for church. I no longer want to go for CU, or I only want to go to church. I don't want to do anything else. I only want to sit in my room and sing. So it affects our connection with the divine, our relationship with the divine. But then finally, grief affects how we interact. So if we are a family of 4 people, each of these 4 people who has been affected by this same loss is going on their own journey of grief. And so how we are behaving around each other is not how we were behaving before the loss. So grief affects how we interact post-loss. So once we know that, then we begin to see what's going on. And then remember that grief comes with either heightened senses or dulled senses. Now, one of the ways in which we monitor grief is that we experience grief in our senses, the 5 senses. So sense of taste, sense of touch, sense of smell, sight, and what?
Hearing.
Smell, sight,
hearing.
And hearing. Yeah. So listen out to expressions that are pointers to these things. I smelled fear. I saw death. I saw darkness. It tasted bland. So those are indicators of where the person is emotionally. And so what I would say to communities, especially the supportive communities, so those are places of faith and schools, because those are the 3 pillars that are present in the lives of children: church, faith spaces, school spaces, and family spaces, is get grief information. We are unfortunately, we are a very grief illiterate society. So because I am not crying, I am not grieving.
I'm okay.
I am okay. Because I am not talking about it, I am okay. So we need to become a bit more grief informed. But also, we also need to not be too quick to rush people to bypass grief. And unfortunately, we are very guilty in religious spaces of spiritual bypassing. So we want to spiritualize grief without allowing people to actually feel the emotions and
Mhm.
sit with the emotions and sit with the discomfort and sit with the pain.
Mhm.
Sitting with the pain, sitting with the discomfort is not a bad thing.
Mm.
It's not a bad thing.
Mm. And we are in a hurry to suppress that and move on. You haven't moved on, and that's not just in death, even in other spaces where there is loss.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what are some of these misconceptions, even as we wind down, some things that we as adults, as parents, we tend to get wrong about children's grief?
We tend to think that change is automatic and change is easy. And because we see change in the outward, that in the inward, it has also happened.
Mm.
So that's a big, big problem.
Mm.
And then because sometimes the change that is happening in the child is a change we want to see, we have always wanted to see, we have always wanted you to grow up. Now you've grown up following the death of your mom. We think that that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So we need to get inquisitive
Right.
about change of behavior.
Mm.
We need to get curious, and we need to question, and we need to observe. And so I would call for parents to a place of radical awareness.
Right.
Radical awareness. And radical awareness allows us to think through the whole spectrum of what this change looks like. Now, most parents, we behave as though we were never children at one point. And so we never put ourselves in the place of the children. We actually want the children to put themselves in our shoes, but we never put ourselves in the shoes of the children. So we want the children to wear shoes they have never worn, and we never want to remember shoes that we have worn.
We have worn, yeah.
Yes, at one point we were children. And so I would ask parents to think, if your pet died when you were 10 years old, what would you have wanted someone to say to you? Then say it to your child. So put yourself in the space of the child. And then sometimes some of us as parents, our pet did die when we were 10. And we did not like the way the things people told us and the way people handled us. So radical awareness will remind me, Enyewe, when I went through this is what I wish someone would have said to me. And now I'm going to say to my child what I wish someone said. So radical awareness. But another thing that we also need to be careful is, do not be too quick to replace the loss.
Yeah.
So if it's a pet, let's now get a new cat. Please stop and ask the child, are you ready for us to get a new cat? Would you like a new cat? By the way, that child I've met adults who say, I've never owned a cat since my cat that died when I was 7 years old.
Yeah.
They have owned dogs, but they no longer do cats. So would you like another cat? And then involve them in the process. So don't rush to replace.
Yeah.
Don't rush to repress. Why are you feeling so bad for so long? Don't rush to repress. But don't rush to rejoice. And by rejoice here, I'm talking about getting back to joy.
Yeah.
You're so sad. Let's go swimming. No, don't be too quick to remove them out. I mean, be observed, be respectful also to allow them to grieve their cat in the way they know, but then also now remove them from it gently, but also with permission. So respect is also important, particularly when you're dealing with older children, teenagers. It's important to respect. Yeah. It's important to respect. So ask for permission. We want to go and get grief therapy as a family. Are you okay with doing that? Would you want to do that? But also respect if they say, I am not ready. And sometimes it may be, I am not ready for the therapist you are taking me to, but I am ready for there's a therapist I saw on TikTok. Can we listen to that one? Can I try and reach out to that one? By the way, their world is so much wider, and sometimes they know.
Yeah, they know what they want.
And then do not be too quick about reconnection. If they've gone through a loss and it's time to go back to school, they may not have bandwidth to handle school for the whole day. Yeah. Sometimes be willing to say, you know what, I'll pick you up from school at lunchtime. So do not rush the reconnection too quickly. Be very careful and very guarded in the reconnection.
Yeah. Thank you. Those are really, really practical tips. I think what underlies all that is our need to fix it and move on quickly, because we ourselves as parents are uncomfortable. And I'm sure you've had to have those awkward conversations where someone is calling you and saying, this child has gone through a loss and they need to come and see you. And the awkward conversation is turning it to maybe, not maybe, actually, it's you who is supposed to come in, you know? Because we want to also convince ourselves as parents that, you know what, this child will be okay. And I want to see them okay so that I am also okay. But the reality is that we really just need, I like what you said, we need, is it grief literacy or grief what? Conversations?
Grief literacy.
Yeah, grief literacy. I like that. And I think for those who would want to even get engaged even more with Mueni, her contacts will be with amongst the summit resources so that you can reach out to her and explore that space of especially the literacy around grief, knowing that it's not just about a death, it's about all these other things. So any final words, Winnie, that you would like to give us to encourage us as we are navigating with children through loss?
Final words is that grief is not a problem to be fixed.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Your children are grieving, they're not broken. And so it's a season to be navigated.
Yeah.
It's a journey to be walked.
Yeah.
And like every other journey, there are milestones, there are bumps, there are seasons when there are parts of the journey where the road is very good and clear, and so we pick up a lot of speed because we are going downhill. And then there are others that are very slow because we are going uphill.
Yeah.
It's a journey.
It's a journey.
And it's not a task to be completed. So you don't finish grieving. What you do is that we need to be able to integrate grief into our lives.
A very powerful way to end that. Integrate it into our lives. It's not something to erase and to fix. You can't say, now I have finished grieving, right?
No.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for the depth, the authenticity, and the wisdom that you have brought into this conversation. And I think that's a really good way to end, that you cannot fix grief. Again, like I said, for those who would like to get in touch with Mueni, we will have all her information amongst the resources in the summit. Thank you so much for your time and the wisdom that you have brought into this summit, Mueni.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah.